Speaking about J.D. Vance, he rose to prominence as a vocal Trump critic, but now this Ohio senator is seen as a staunch supporter of the former president.
Joining us now with how this could all play out in Milwaukee as well as with voters is Costas Panagopoulos, professor and chair of the Department of Political Science at Northeastern University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Excuse me.
Well, what was your reaction when you heard Trump's VP pick is J.D. Vance?
Well, he's been on the short list for a while, so it wasn't terribly surprising. But in some ways, it's an interesting pick. I don't think that, Ohio has not really been in play in recent cycles. But this is clearly somebody who is going to be loyal to Donald Trump. And I think that that was a key factor influencing the decision. It's also somebody who, in some ways, could be a controversial choice, in part because of his positions on the issues, which may not appeal to moderate voters, but also he doesn't have very much experience. He's been in office for just a couple of years in the Senate, and so they'll have to make a case that he's eligible and ready to step in should something happen when you're a heartbeat away from the presidency of the United States.
You spoke more about him being maybe a controversial pick. It is curious why Trump would not pick someone a bit more moderate and go with someone like J.D. Vance, who's far right-leaning. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think he wanted somebody who's going to be loyal to him, as I said, and somebody who's close to him on the issues. And J.D. Vance clearly is. At least recently, he's adopted positions on key issues very similar to Donald Trump, and especially on issues like abortion, on issues like aid to Ukraine, which he staunchly opposes. And again, that's going to be a highlight of the Democratic campaign, because Democrats will make the case that, if Vladimir Putin could have picked a candidate to run as vice president with Donald Trump in this election cycle, they might have picked J.D. Vance or somebody just like that.
Trump is now said to be rewriting his RNC speech to really focus on unity. How do you think this could affect the rhetoric of his campaign and then also influence some of those undecided voters?
Well, the problem is there's not very many undecided voters, and everybody is so firmly entrenched in their camps. Some of the recent polling I've seen shows that, just a handful, just, a couple of percentage of the American public is undecided in this race. I think that what happened over the weekend was devastating for this country and a sad commentary on where we are politically, and just devastating for the families of the victims, including Donald Trump. It was a moment when the country could have come together and united. That's certainly what the president tried to do, and even some of Donald Trump's early reactions to the incident seemed to suggest we would see a change in the tone or the rhetoric in this campaign, that the temperature would be turned down. And I'm not sure that's going to happen. We seem to have fallen right back to an equilibrium position of contentiousness and division very quickly. And let's see what the rest of the Republican convention is like, whether it's going to adopt a more somber tone, a more conciliatory tone, a united, effort, or whether or not the bicker fighting will continue.
Costas, you talked about the rhetoric because we're seeing that Trump is calling for unity, but a lot of Republicans are blaming Biden for just days before that assassination attempt, and Vance for saying to put Trump in a bullseye. So I know Biden has walked back and said that that was a mistake, but there does seem to be some change here.
Yeah, well, both sides have got to tone down the rhetoric if there's any hope of this country coming together and finding common ground. I think that goes for both sides of the aisle, and I think that certainly Democrats and in some cases the Republicans recognize that they're making an effort. But it'll be interesting to see in the heat of a presidential campaign that's very, very close and likely to be very close until the very end here, with a lot of surprises, it seems, along the way, whether we return back to business as usual. And of course, the decisions today, like the dismissal of the court case against Donald Trump in the classified documents case, isn't going to help matters when you have a case that can be made that, the president is being treated differently from any other American and that he's being treated like he's above the law. And I think that that is likely to remain controversial, and the rhetoric is likely to remain heated around issues like that in this race.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, Costas, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure. Great to be with you.